Archy.
Urky. Archy.
Anarchy.
Monarchy.
Arctic.
Arctic.
The Arctic island of Novaya Zemlya.
Arctic conditions.
Arc welding.
Arc welding.
Ard.
Erd.
A drunkard.
Ardent.
Ardent.
An ardent supporter of free trade. An ardent lover.
Ardour.
Ardour.
They sang with real ardour.
Arduous.
Arduous.
The arduous task of loading all the boxes into the van.
An arduous journey through the mountains.
R.
Area.
Area.
Only cheeses made in this area may be labelled Roquefort. Crime rates are much higher in urban areas.
Many areas of Africa have suffered severe drought this year. A no-smoking area.
Their apartment has a large kitchen area. Come through into the dining area.
The reception area of the hotel. A storage area on the ground floor.
The course covers 3 main subject areas.
This study has clearly identified a major problem area for the National Health Service.
We're funding research into new areas such as law enforcement technology, reforms in the key areas of health and education, an area of 2,000 square miles, a formula to calculate the area of a circle.
Area code.
Area code.
Arena.
Arena.
A sports arena.
An indoor arena. Women are entering the political arena in larger numbers.
American economic activity in the international arena.
Aunt.
Aren't.
They aren't here.
I'm in big trouble, aren't I?
Argan oil.
Argan oil.
Argentinian.
Argentinian. Argentinian.
Argon.
Argon.
Argo.
Argot.
Teenage argot.
Arguable.
Arguable.
Whether or not Webb is the best person for the job is arguable.
It's arguable that the legislation has had little effect on young people's behaviour.
Arguably.
Arguably.
Senna was arguably the greatest racing driver of all time. Senna was arguably the greatest racing driver of all time.
Argue.
Argue.
We could hear the neighbours arguing. Gallagher continued to argue with the referee throughout the game. They were arguing about how to spend the money.
The children were arguing over which TV programme to watch.
Croft argued that a date should be set for the withdrawal of troops.
It could be argued that a dam might actually increase the risk of flooding. Baker argued against cutting the military budget. She argued the case for changing the law.
The researchers put forward a well-argued case for banning the drug. They argued the point for hours without reaching a conclusion.
Joyce argued me into buying a new jacket.
The statement argues a change of attitude by the management. There was no point arguing the toss after the goal had been disallowed.
Argument.
Argument.
She had a big argument with her husband. There have been a lot of arguments about who was responsible for the accident.
We need to provide a convincing argument as to why the system should be changed.
A powerful argument against smoking.
A good argument can be made for comparing the IT revolution with the invention of writing itself.
The arguments in favour of banning tobacco advertising.
The familiar argument that the costs outweigh the benefits.
Ian accepted the suggestion without argument.
If, for the sake of argument, you aren't offered the job, what will you do? If, for the sake of argument, you aren't offered the job, what will you do?
Argumentative.
Argumentative.
He quickly becomes argumentative after a few drinks.
Argy-bargy.
Argy-bargy.
Jones was sent off after a bit of argy-bargy with other players.
Aria.
Aria.
Aryan.
Aryan.
A vegetarian.
A librarian.
A vegetarian restaurant. Arid.
Arid.
Water from the Great Lakes is pumped to arid regions.
My mind was arid, all inspiration gone.
Aries.
Aries.
A right.
A right.
I was not certain I had heard right.
Arise.
Arise.
A crisis has arisen in the Foreign Office.
More problems like those at the nuclear power plant are certain to arise. Several important legal questions arose in the contract negotiations.
Can we begin by discussing matters arising from the last meeting? Should the need arise for extra staff, we will contact you.
Aristocracy.
Aristocracy.
Dukes, earls, and other members of the aristocracy.
The landed aristocracy.
Aristocrat.
Aristocrat.
Aristocratic.
Aristocratic.
An aristocratic family.
Arithmetic.
Arithmetic. Arithmetic.
The arithmetic mean.
Arithmetic progression.
Arithmetic progression.
The arc.
The arc.
Arc.
Some of the school's computer equipment is out of the arc.
Arm.
Arm.
Dave has a broken arm.
He had a tattoo on his left arm. Tim's mother put her arms around him. Pat was carrying a box under his arm. He had a pile of books in his arms. They walked along the beach arm in arm.
She took him by the arm and pushed him out of the door.
Jerry took Fiona in his arms and kissed her.
He folded his arms and leaned back in his chair. The old lady rushed to greet him, arms outstretched.
Sales of arms to the Middle East have dramatically increased.
The arms trade. An arms dealer. The government is cutting arms expenditure.
The United Nations will lift its arms embargo against the country.
Boys as young as 13 are taking up arms to defend the city.
He appealed for the rebels to lay down their arms.
All available forces are under arms. Residents are up in arms about plans for a new road along the beach. We welcomed Henry's offer with open arms.
My new in-laws accepted me with open arms.
I'd give my right arm to be 21 again. I'd give my right arm to be 21 again. Petra keeps all men at arm's length to avoid getting hurt.
I've got a list of things to do as long as your arm.
The political arm of a terrorist organization.
Epson America is the U.S. marketing arm of a Japanese company.
The arm of a record player.
There is a 15-foot arm supporting the antenna.
Arm.
The local farmers have armed themselves with rifles and pistols.
The rebels armed a group of 2,000 men to attack the city. Arm yourself with all the facts you need to argue your case. Arm yourself with all the facts you need to argue your case.
The guidebook arms the reader with a mass of useful information.
The Armada.
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 An armada of U.S. naval vessels.
Armadillo.
Armadillo.
Armageddon.
Armageddon.
A nuclear Armageddon.
Armament.
Armament.
Nuclear armaments. Armature.
Armature.
Armband.
Armband.
Arm candy.
Arm candy. He had just invited me along as arm candy.
Armchair.
Armchair.
Her books about her adventures give enjoyment and inspiration to armchair travelers. Armchair fans will have to pay extra to watch the best games live.
Armed.
Armed.
Armed police raided the building.
The minister was kidnapped by armed men on his way to the airport.
The prisoners were kept under armed guard.
The suspect is armed with a shotgun.
She got 10 years in prison for armed robbery.
The president fears that armed conflict is possible.
There is very little support for an armed struggle against the government.
A heavily armed battleship.
Many of the gangs are armed to the teeth. She came to the meeting armed with all the facts and figures to prove us wrong. I went out armed with my binoculars to see what I could find in the fields.
Armed forces.
Armed forces.
Armful.
Armful.
An armful of books.
Armhole.
Armhole.
Armistice.
Armistice.
Armlet.
Armlet.
Armlock.
Armlock.
Armoire.
Armoire.
Armor.
Armor.
A knight wearing a suit of armor. Armor-clad warships.
Armored. Armored.
Armored personnel carriers.
An armored division.
Armored car.
Armored car.
Armourer.
Armorer.
Armor-plated.
Armor-plated.
Armory.
Armory.
Interest rates have become powerful weapons in the government's armory. Interest rates have become powerful weapons in the government's armory.
Armpit.
Armpit.
Dale says Boot is the armpit of Montana.
Arms control.
Arms control.
Arms race.
Arms race.
The nuclear arms race.
Arm twisting.
Arm twisting. No amount of arm twisting will get me to reveal who told me. No amount of arm twisting will get me to reveal who told me.
Arm wrestling.
Arm wrestling.
Army.
Army.
The army are helping to clear up after the floods.
An army officer. Army units launched attacks on bases near Junier Port.
He joined the army when he was 17.
My son is in the army.
Rebel armies have taken control of the radio station. The Slovenians say they can raise an army of 20,000 men. The village hall is maintained by an army of volunteers.
A road.
A road.
Aroma.
Aroma.
The aroma of fresh coffee.
Aromatherapy.
Aromatherapy.
Aromatic.
Aromatic.
Aromatic oils.
Aromatic herbs.
A rose.
A rose.
Around.
Around.
The whole family was sitting around the dinner table. The Romans built a defensive wall around the city.
She wore a beautiful silk shawl around her shoulders.
People crowded around to see what was happening. We would hear the birds singing all around us.
A helicopter was circling around looking for somewhere to land.
They danced around the bonfire. He wandered around the streets, looking in shop windows. There are over 40 radio stations dotted around the country.
When I finished college, I travelled around for a while.
Since it's your first day here, would you like me to show you around? We started looking around for somewhere to live. Is there a bank around here? When you've been around a person long enough, you start to know how they'll react. The new housing areas in and around Dublin. Catherine was the most beautiful girl for miles around. Why is there never a policeman around when you need one? Jake went down to the bar, but there was no one around that he knew. Is your dad around? Is your dad around? The list is somewhere around. If the gate's locked, you'll have to go around the side of the house. There's a door around the back. She ran around the corner and straight into the arms of John Delaney. Rex spun around and kicked the gun from her hand.
Slowly, he turned the boat around towards the open sea.
There must have been around 40,000 people in the stadium. The whole project will probably cost around $3 million.
Most guests started to make their way home around about 10 o'clock.
That joke's been around for years.
Manson has a reputation as one of the most stylish designers around.
Why does everything have to be arranged around what Callum wants to do?
Their whole society was built around their religious beliefs.
I've been waiting around all morning. They could be seen hanging around street corners watching the girls go by. We must find a way around these difficulties. The company is expected to get around this problem by borrowing from the banks. Write your name on this list and pass it around.
Someone's been moving the furniture around. You could tell this guy had been around a bit by the knowing way he talked.
Redwood trees can measure 30 or 40 feet around.
Around the clock.
Around the clock.
Arousal.
Arousal.
Arouse.
Arouse.
Matt's behavior was arousing the interest of the neighbors.
A great deal of anger was aroused by Campbell's decision.
She felt aroused by the pressure of his body so close to hers. Anne had to be aroused from a deep sleep.
Arpeggio.
Arpeggio. Music by Mozart, arranged by Britten. Music by Mozart, arranged by Britten.
Arraign.
Arraign.
Thompson was arraigned on a charge of murder.
Arrange.
Arrange.
Contact your local branch to arrange an appointment.
I'd like to arrange a business loan.
Have you arranged to meet Mark this weekend?
Beth arranged a meeting with the marketing director. We still have to arrange how to get home.
We had arranged that I would go for the weekend.
Matthew arrived at 2 o'clock as arranged.
The company will arrange for a taxi to meet you at the airport. Dave arranged for someone to drive him home.
Ben arranged the flowers in a vase.
The list is arranged alphabetically. The children were arranged in lines according to height.
A sympathy arranged for the piano.
Arranged marriage.
Arranged marriage.
Arrangement.
Arrangement.
Have you made all your travel arrangements? I've agreed to help with arrangements for the party. The family made arrangements for his body to be flown back. The family made arrangements for his body to be flown back.
An arrangement between the two couples ensured there was always someone to look after the children. The school has an arrangement with local businesses.
Maxine cancelled our arrangement to meet.
It would usually cost $500, but I'm sure we can come to some kind of arrangement.
Pets are permitted at the resort by prior arrangement.
The airport is currently reviewing its security arrangements. Domestic arrangements. The traditional arrangement of desks in rows.
A beautiful flower arrangement.
A piano arrangement of an old folk song.
Arranger. Arranger.
Arrant.
Errant.
What arrant nonsense!
Errant.
Array.
Array.
A dazzling array of flowers. A bewildering array of options.
There was a vast array of colours to choose from. She came in arrayed in all her finery. Makeup arrayed on the bathroom counter.
Arrears.
Arrears.
Many people are in arrears with their rent.
The rent money is 2 months in arrears. We've got 3 months' arrears to pay.
He was ordered to pay rent arrears of £550.
A salary paid monthly in arrears.
Arrest.
Arrest.
He was arrested and charged with murder.
Her father was arrested for fraud.
5 youths were arrested in connection with the attack.
I got arrested for careless driving.
He was arrested on suspicion of supplying drugs.
The drug is used to arrest the spread of the disease.
The mountains are the most arresting feature of the Glen.
The police made several arrests.
A man is under arrest following the suspicious death of his wife.
He sued the police for wrongful arrest.
Arrival.
Arrival.
Only the timely arrival of the police prevented the situation from becoming worse.
Traffic problems account for 1/3 of late arrivals.
Shortly after our arrival in London, Lisa was attacked.
A deposit is payable on arrival.
The demand for phone numbers has increased since the arrival of mobile phones.
The arrival of winter can make many people feel depressed.
New arrivals were greeted with suspicion.
Late arrivals will not be admitted to the theatre. The Arrivals Lounge.
Arrive.
Arrive.
Give me a call to let me know you've arrived safely.
What time does the plane arrive in New York?
He arrived late as usual.
By the time the police arrived on the scene, the burglars had fled.
The card arrived on my birthday. When her wedding day arrived, she was really nervous.
Sharon's baby arrived just after midnight. After much consideration, we have arrived at a decision. When he saw his name painted on the door, he knew he'd arrived.
Arrogant. Arrogance.
Arrogance.
I couldn't believe the arrogance of the man.
Arrogant.
Arrogant.
He was unbearably arrogant. An arrogant attitude.
Arrogate.
Arrogate.
Arrow.
Arrow.
Follow the arrows to the X-ray department.
Arrowhead.
Arrowhead.
Arrowroot.
Arrowroot.
Arse.
Arse.
Arsehole.
Arsehole.
Arslicker. Arslicker.
Arsenal.
Arsenal.
Britain's nuclear arsenal. An arsenal of guns. A software package that's now part of our arsenal. He has a whole arsenal of cameras.
Arsenic.
Arsenic.
Arson.
Arson.
The school was destroyed in an arson attack.
Arsonist.
Arsonist.
Art.
Art.
The Museum of Modern Art in New York. An example of early Indian art.
An art exhibition.
An art critic.
An arts and crafts fair.
The exhibition features works of art by Picasso and Matisse.
He's very good at art. An art teacher.
Art college.
Government funding for the arts has been reduced.
Television is ruining the art of conversation. Writing advertisements is quite an art. I've got the early morning routine down to a fine art.
Art.
Art Deco.
Art Deco.
Art director.
Art director.
Artifact.
Artifact.
Ancient Egyptian artifacts.
Arterial.
Arterial.
Arterial blood.
Arteriosclerosis.
Arteriosclerosis.
Artery.
Artery.
Artesian well.
Artesian well.
Art form.
Art form.
Music is quite unlike any other art form. A company that's in danger of turning mismanagement into an art form.
Artful.
Artful.
Artful tricks.
Artful photographs.
Artfully concealed pockets.
Art gallery.
Art gallery.
Art house.
Art house.
Art house films.